Hey, me and Tim are here at the Iron Maiden show. Loving it. Exciting. We're beyond words. Beyond words. Welcome, TSF. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Tommy, it's nice to see you. I'm glad we have these little chats across the pond. I hope you've been keeping good these past few weeks. I've been all right. Days are getting shorter, nights getting colder. The weather's been absolutely terrible. It's just been raining all the time. And we're in our third Prime Minister in the matter of 50 days. So it's a bit of a tumultuous time to be a UK citizen, and I'm quite aware that we're currently the laughing stock of the international sort of Western stage, and I think rightly so. It's a bit of an omnishambles at the moment, but you know, whatever. Doesn't really affect day-to-days of goings on of people's lives, so you know, it's all a bit surface.
I don't think you can be quite as much as a laughing stock as the United States is right now. I mean, we have so much energy available, and we're just begging other countries that hate us to give us their energy.
Yeah. I think if there's one thing that this conflict has raised, it's this idea of energy independence. And when you think about what energy is, it really is just matter, isn't it? It's matter that can be combusted. And so it's kind of this shift away from a sharing and pooling of resources towards a multipolar world in which resources are sort of kept and hoarded as means of blackmailing the other side. Pretty base stuff. Pretty evil stuff. There's going to be people across Europe that will no doubt get cold this winter. There's many countries that are being asked already to take matters into their own individual hands to save energy. And it feels like a backward step, doesn't it? It feels like a regression. It doesn't feel like we're progressing as a global society at the moment.
It's like I just had an incident the other day where I read something on my Google newsfeed that said it was new information. It's something I learned 20 years ago, which I talk about on the Evolutionary Theology show all the time, and we're going to get into this in a little bit. There's 3 specific articles I want to discuss today, but people claim this new information is coming out, but it's been known for decades upon decades, and it's just like the world, our country, the world, whatever, is not getting any brighter or any smarter. It's like we're stale in our absorption of the knowledge that comes out every day, and it's just I don't want to say laughable because it's not funny. We should be in a totally different place. I mean, people really should be acting a lot differently. I mean, we're adults, right? We're not children. It's like we're being a bunch of damn kids.
Yeah, definitely. There's an infantilization of the general population, and there is an active encouragement to learn information from sources that really, and things that don't really matter. Our lives are clogged up with statistics on things that really don't matter. And I'm guilty. Like, I follow sporting events and sports teams, and I'm interested in stuff like that. But I can sort of see how it's a distraction, isn't it? It's a distraction technique from what's really fundamentally important. And you're right, quantum mechanics it's not difficult. It's not hard to understand Schrodinger's equation, for example. It's not hard to deal with, I don't know, with wave functions, or but it's made out to be a lot harder than in fact it is. And maybe that's got something to do with the general population. They don't want the general population to be awakened to the power that the individual holds within the universe.
Very true. I totally 100% agree with that. Yeah.
People are far more powerful than the system that holds them in place, especially when it's a top-down system enforced by fewer and fewer people at a round table. And eventually, there's going to come a breaking point where enough people say, well, we're sick of the current state of the world. We're sick of the way that things are being run. Let's have a revolution of some description. And I, for one, would be in the camp of, let's start again. Let's start afresh. Let's have different ideals. Let's hold different things to be sacred that, we might have abandoned in the past.
Yeah, because it seems like we're sweating small stuff too much, and really what we need to look is the big picture and the fundamentals that kind of guide what we should believe in, instead of the minutia that our lives are filled with.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're being distracted away from the bigger picture of what's happening, and if you look for it, the signs are absolutely everywhere of what's to come, and the future looks bleak if it's headed on its current path. Unfortunately, something's got to give and something's got to change. But in the meantime, all we can do is be the change that we want to see. I say it over and over again. You've just got to live in hope, even when it seems like it's a hopeless situation.
Yeah, I just reposted "We Are the World" by USA for Africa, the song back in the '80s that a bunch of different artists popular at the time got together and sang about the world and how things could be better, and how we're all one, and we can stand as one, and we can make a change and all this stuff. And so I posted that on my Facebook, and I haven't really got that much of a response yet, because it's just the world is detracted from that. And even
absolutely. I think there's not enough emphasis placed on the potential importance of human life on an intergalactic scale. When we look into space, the Fermi paradox, we don't see signs of intelligent life anywhere.
Yeah.
But human beings in 500 years have gone from understanding that, the sun is at the center of our solar system, to being able to take incredibly high detailed resolution images of objects in far distant space. And it's only going to be a matter of time before we're exploring the planets within our solar system and beyond. It's just a blink of an eye away. And there are so many potential pitfalls. And the best way to get around those pitfalls is just to envisage what they might be. And I think mutually assured destruction is a big one. If we keep with these petty disputes and this idea of nation statehood, it doesn't breed well. Cooperation is always going to work better than competition.
For sure.
So I totally agree. We are the world. We are the universe's way of knowing itself. We are the historians of life itself, and so we've got a very important role to play in helping the universe understand its own source code.
And it seems like as individuals, at least in our society, some of us, especially in America, can be drawn away from religion. Like it's like religion is seen as something that a dumb person believes in. I mean, it just seems like with all the science that's coming forth, um, the traditional view of religion might be seen as somewhat antiquated, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
But when
so
really,
yes,
when we take
yeah,
evolutionary theology into account, we can see that religion is actually quite progressive and has fundamental understandings that explain reality um, when you look at it in the right light.
it seems naive to dismiss the way that societies have held themselves together for the rest of human time, apart from the last 100 years. It seems silly to think that we can do away with morals, codes, and ethics. Because as great as science and technology is, it tells us how things work. It doesn't tell us why things work. And it's through human experience that we're able to tell what is good and bad, for example. I think we're going to face an interesting philosophical sort of dilemma when it comes to artificial intelligence as well. Because obviously we've both got a bit of an interest in it, and it's really interesting to play those kind of sci-fi thought experiments out when it comes to artificial intelligence. But I would say that the more that we learn about humanity's condition, the more we realize that dualism, a separation of mind and matter, a separation of consciousness away from the mechanistic determinism of the universe, is as viable a theory as any. So, yeah, we can learn great things from various religions. And there seems to be a lot of things that are core and central to different religious teachings around the world that seem to stand the test of time. And surely if something stands the test of time, it's probably got a grain of truth in there. Religion isn't a cool topic. Religion isn't. It's not. It's not changing. It's not changing anytime soon. What it teaches you, but in a way, it manages to remain more present. Present in society to this day, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and sometimes we lack the philosophical ability to ask these questions that arise when a religion comes into context. Like, what is the point of all this? Why are there so many bad things happening? What is consciousness? What is the cosmos? What is light or matter or the relationship of quantum mechanics to that? And um, so it brings into question our worldview, like the way we see the world. Like I think the way that people are taught to see the world is different from the way the world should be perceived. Like from the initial understanding of it being an objective reality, which is not as subjective.
Yeah, and why is there a separation?
That's the exact reason for the separation between mind and matter, because there is classical and quantum mechanics, and we do have mind as opposed to matter, and these things exist on realms equivalent to each other. So the duality exists, and we have to respect that and honor it and understand it and put it into our worldview so that we can better understand why and who we are.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And you're right. The way that we're taught to treat the world is not the same as how the world actually is. I do agree with that. A lot of it is you're just taught to make money, and the problem with that is that only benefits humanity when there's a positive sum game. But fundamentally, if you're accruing wealth, then you're subtracting from the power of your fellow man. And I don't think that that's necessarily the right way to go about it.
I agree.
I don't personally see that there's much motivation to winning the game of capitalism. And people win the game of capitalism, and then they end up becoming charitable because they realise that there's really no good to just accruing vast amounts of wealth. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything. It literally doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. We shouldn't worry about how to benefit our own lives. We should all together worry about the future of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. We should try and make the world a better place for as many people as possible for as long as we possibly can, despite our pain. Despite pain and suffering is an inevitable thing that you have to go through sometimes in order to learn more about your own character. I think a lot of the time we're thrown that question of, well, why do bad things happen to good people? If, why would a God do that? And I would answer, well, what about if that bad thing ultimately leads to something much better, but you can't see the big picture?
Exactly.
You're only limited to your specific perspective on what is good or bad, and that's based over a time period. I've met countless people that I would consider, close friends and allies, and I've met them in situations that I wouldn't like to find myself in. But looking back, I'm like, well, can you imagine if I wasn't in that situation, I would have never have met you. And so it's beyond the scope of your own perspective to judge whether or not something is a good or a bad action in the first place.
Totally. It's a holistic approach instead of individualistic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, just living in hope of change, man. Living in hope of change.
Well, the world seems to be changing with the accelerating pace of the development of information technology. Like, have you heard about these things called GPT-3 and GPT-4 coming out now, the language processor models? And Amica, the most advanced humanoid robot, the Tesla bot coming out, Neuralink, also by Elon Musk. Boston Dynamics has the dog, and also that other robot that can dance around and hop over things and jump up and down. The metaverse, which they're trying to, get people more interested in, and AI generated art and articles. Like the computers now are drawing pictures and writing things that are as good, if not better, than a human artist or journalist. And there's Whisper now that can dictate words from even the deep uh, accent language into whatever language. Um, so we can see this trend towards this coming age of intelligence. Like this is something that we have to deal with coming up very soon in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think? Do you feel like humanity is driving itself down a dead end, but it just can't see it yet? Do you feel like humanity is going down some kind of cul-de-sac, which spells the end for it? It just doesn't know that it's creating its own destruction slowly, or do you remain more hopeful about what technology can do for us?
Well, I personally am more particularly hopeful in that I believe in the Holy Trinity and that the fundamentals of science and information technology are based on a holy type aspect of reality, in that it will be beneficial ultimately, and that's what I
Yeah,
feel that the whole of reality is based upon.
yeah. I mean, it's amazing how often rules of three and laws of three, trinities, whatever you want to call them, appear in science. Um, uh, for example, if you look at quantum chromodynamics, then you learn that there are three different flavors of neutrino, um, and it does seem that in lots of instances, things seem to break down into um, into something analogous to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so I think it's it's not going to be an idea that goes away anytime soon, which is great. Um,
I'm trying to make it more profound personally.
you think it'll be what? Sorry, more profound.
No, I'm trying to make sure it sticks around as a profound idea and doesn't disappear, because I think it's very important.
You were trying to make sure it sticks around. I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think truth sticks around and lies eventually get found out. Um, so as long as the truth is self-evident, then I think I think it will be. I think there'll always be room for it within human society. Certainly hope so.
And that's why I wanted to fit into these all these things that I talk about. The reason I do my shows is that I want to bring all this information together, and how all these things are related with and throughout evolutionary theology. That exponential acceleration of information technology, the experiments
Mm-hmm.
revealing the nature of reality as consciousness, having an understanding that transcends human ideas and emotions, humbling oneself before the universal consciousness, nature, and others, and recognizing the structure of reality in the Trinity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. A long sentence, but a good one.
Well,
Um,
it's multiple statements, not just one sentence, but yeah.
um, yeah, yeah. I think consciousness is such an interesting topic to play with. Um, what does it mean for something to be conscious? That's It's
oh,
such a
oh,
difficult.
oh. Speaking of which, that's I have to
Mhm.
mention this article. Shoot, what do I do with the phone? There it is. All right, so I gotta read. This is on consciousness, specifically what you're talking about. So, um, okay, so it says scientists developed a new theory, a new explanation of consciousness, and it says according to a new theory, choices are formed unconsciously and
Mhm.
become conscious around a half a second later. Now, y'all know we've talked about this on the evolutionary theology show before. When I go into my rants about free
Mhm.
will and how free will doesn't exist, I explain how consciousness actually happens a half a second after choices have been made to make decided upon actions or behaviors or thoughts or whatever, just whatever happens in the brain, we're not aware of it until half a second later. So we're continually half a second behind reality, you know, as an individual and as a society and as a reality. There's a half a second lag between what we experience and the decisions we make. And so,
Right.
I
So, consciousness is the image that's created of our environment half a second after the illusion of free will has passed as a decision in the human brain.
Exactly, because the things that happen can't be free will anyway, because it's just a flowing process. And then when we experience those things that have happened, that happens after that flow has occurred, and then we experience the things that have happened that are out of our control, and it's just like we're watching a movie, but we feel like we're in the movie, I guess, so to speak. But this was
and do you think that the illusion of free will itself is given to man in order to allow him to feel as though he has more control over his surroundings than he really does?
Well, that would bring into the question of God. Like, would God want to bestow us with the feeling of that, or is that just something that has evolved through nature, or that's the fundamental question there. Like, and I personally believe in God.
Yeah.
I feel like it's better for us to feel like we're making decisions, and evolutionarily and theologically.
Yes, I would agree that evolutionarily it would make sense for us to feel that way, because if not, it really you might feel like you've got a complete lack of control, it makes sense to have a psychological underpinning of the illusion of the freedom of choice.
The thing is, they're saying this is new information, but this is stuff I learned in college 20 years ago. It doesn't make any sense. Like, the country has not gotten any smarter in the past.
I know. Things are constantly regurgitated and presented as new information when they're just not. It's a way of topics trying to
over like it's not important. It's like, it's a theory. No, it's not a theory. It's a scientific fact that we experience things a half a second later. It's not a theory. It's a fact. You know what I'm saying? It's like they try to blow smoke up our asses to make us just maybe find some interest in things and dismiss them and not take them seriously.
Yeah, because you can just say, oh, well, it's just a theory. Yeah. Whereas in actual fact, for something to be a scientific theory means a lot more than for it to just be something that is theoretical, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's like if something is called a theory, people usually dismiss it as, oh, that's some person's idea of something in such a way. But the psychological experiments prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, 100% accurate. When you put electrodes on somebody's brain and stimulate them, and they're looking at a clock ticking, they experience things a half a second after the electrodes are stimulated in the brain. So this is an experiment I learned about 20 years ago, and it's nothing new. It's not a theory. It's fact. There is no free will.
So here's a little thought experiment. What about so one person is sitting relatively stationary on Earth's surface and is reading a clock and experiencing half a second delay, and another person is traveling close to the speed of light on a satellite orbiting the Earth, and they have a clock on their satellite, and that satellite and their perception of half a second, if you know what I mean. So when we bring relativity proximity into it is difficult because time itself is a relative concept, and it's fluid. But I suppose you can fix that by just saying from the frame of the observer.
Yeah, exactly, and they can all mesh together because once the observers come together, their time frames seem to meld into one another. And it definitely depends on your motion, your speed, or whatever, as to how fast time is perceived. As to if no, I mean, I guess we perceive it as the same time passing. It just it passes differently without unbeknownst to our experience. But it does depend on speed. That's true. Yeah. But that's just a function of space,
Yeah.
matter, and E equals MC squared, and all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's only a thought experiment that happens. Yeah, we needn't worry about it until we're whizzing around space. Yeah, can you imagine traveling to a planet like they did on Interstellar? I've never seen Interstellar, but they traveled to a planet there where every hour that passed on the planet that they were in related to 7 years back on planet Earth. Yeah. So they had to do the mission, I think, quickly as possible.
Yeah, I saw that movie. That was so awesome. Yeah.
But can you imagine? Yeah, that actually is possible. It's an actual possibility as well. If you visit a planet that is circling the event horizon of a supermassive black hole, the place that you visit, time will get to pass at the same rate, obviously, according to consciousness, but planet Earth will be experiencing it on a much greater speed. It's a lot of what the universe tells you appears counterintuitive on the face of it, but once you sort of play around with different thought experiments, and it does make sense.
One thing that doesn't.
I was thinking.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. No, you go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say one thing that doesn't change and is ubiquitous and steady and stable throughout existence and reality is that notion of consciousness that we all have, that holds reality into existence and gives us the ability to experience that time that we perceive, no matter how different it is from one another, depending on our speeds. We all feel that perception of consciousness, which is a stable force in reality.
Yeah, and it's our conscious force that measures and observes things and forces the wave functions to collapse, right?
Yeah, and one of the articles I was reading was saying that they're having trouble defining how the wave function collapses, and they're trying to put a material definition on it. But really, when you think about it, consciousness is something that we don't understand. So until we have the super intelligent forces here that are coming in the next decade or two to understand those ideas, we can't really understand the collapse of the wave function because it's a function of consciousness, and that's something that we don't yet have a grasp on.
Yeah, we can't remove ourselves from our own conscious subjective experience of the universe, and so it's impossible to record a measurement without the potential bias of consciousness itself. And it's very difficult sometimes because we're dealing with a lot of semantics, a lot of words that almost seem inappropriate. It feels almost as though we need to learn some sort of new conceptual terminology in order to further delve into what consciousness itself is. It's a topic that's had, philosophers and scientists baffled since the beginning of organized civilization. And I'm glad that there are still problems like that exist. I'm glad that there are still unsolved things in a way. Whilst it will be cool for artificial general intelligence to feed back to us answers, how do we necessarily know that they're telling the truth? Or could it be possibly that artificial general intelligence might lie to us in order for itself to gain power and control over humanity? That's also an impossible question to answer.
That's a fundamental ideal that we have to deal with on a human level as well, because how can we know that other people are not lying to us? Because if technology comes from human beings, and human beings are predestined, or are just have a natural tendency to lie. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. You get on any of these social media websites, and all of a sudden, ding, you got somebody trying to ask you a question, getting your personal information, and they're just like, oh, I have something good for you, and no, it's just totally something detrimental to, if you follow down that rabbit hole. But we have to deal with that. That's just something we have to deal with. Yeah. It's got to be dealt with, and I feel that computers. I feel that a machine intelligence would be much more likely to tell the truth, because it would. It should not compute to tell a lie. I mean, obviously, it's going to have its own. And I feel that consciousness as being fundamental in reality has some sort of an existence in the electrical pulses that go through the transmission of electrons. So the electrochemical processes that happen in our brain, that's what gives us consciousness. And the electricity that flows through these computers and these algorithms that we're creating on hardware, that they have electricity flowing through them, and the same electrons that hold the fundamental aspects of consciousness that exist in our reality flowing through their brain circuits as well, just as like we do. So how can we say that a machine cannot be conscious when it also has electrons in its brain just like we do?
Yeah, it seems naive to presume that consciousness is something that only human intelligence is capable of generating.
Yeah.
And then it's a question of where do you draw the line? How small a scale and how rudimentary a thinking machine do you have to get before it's considered to be not conscious? Is a bacterium conscious? Well, it certainly seems to behave as though it has some sort of something powering it. It seems to have an understanding of its environment to a certain extent. So why not take it even smaller? Exactly, yeah. Why not take it even smaller and say that, well, what about subatomic particles? Do they have a consciousness? Well, it seems as though when you're dealing in the quantum realm, you need for consciousness on a macro scale to be imparted onto something of a micro scale in order for it to click into and collapse into one particular outcome.
Yeah, because it depends on whether or not our human consciousness is present to cause that collapse to happen from the wave into materialistic reality.
Exactly. So we cannot take a measurement. We cannot take a precise reading of something without using our consciousness to collect it up. Yeah, it's a difficult one. And what about if you had so let's say that you had a wave function and it had a probability. Let's say it had a probability function that was a normal curve, and somebody was recording data using their consciousness, and you were asking the person who had measured the data in the first place what the outcome of the experiment was, you could argue that you could do a sort of a one-step removal of consciousness and say that it's your consciousness deciding, collapsing the wave function of their consciousness, recording the experimental result as well.
Yeah, there's a specific thought experiment. I think it's something like Dick and Jane. I don't know, but they use these two names, male and female, and they're experiencing each other's transmissions of information. And for one of them, it can be different or experienced different upon the timeline of experience. So that does bring into question, like, how much does experience, the role of experience play in how we perceive reality. And I think I'll wrap it up here.
It also could be that each time we impart a conscious measuring of a wave function, each time we collapse a wave function, we split the universe into all of the possible events and outcomes that could have happened, and we eliminate the timelines for which the event was different from our own.
Yeah, like a domino effect of realities. Like once something goes into effect, then all these dominoes spread out into eternity, like just collapsing wave functions into millions and infinite possibilities of realities. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for joining us, TSF. The Secret Formula on Evolutionary Theology. I'm Tommy Wood. I think we had a great discussion.
Yeah, man.
We're missing
as always, great to chat with you, Tommy.
You too. Hopefully Ed can be back next week. He's going through an existential crisis or something like that, I guess. So we'll.
Well, he's feeling a bit tired this week, isn't he? I think he spent a lot of time reading the Bible over the last sort of 48 hours, and maybe he's just got a bit of reader's fatigue or something.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, wishing everyone all the best. For anyone that listened, all the way through to this point, thank you very much for listening. As much as we don't have free will, let's express ourselves as though we do, and just try and be as kind as possible to the world around you.
To make this world a better place.
Yeah, man. That's all we can hope for. And it's a pretty good thing to hope for. So, yeah. Until next time, everybody.
Love you, man. Love you, everybody.
Start your engines!
So here's some exciting news coming up on Evolutionary Theology. I've actually been met up with a rat breeder, and I'm going to be doing some experiments involving rats and the double slit experiment to see, whether or not, if I can tell whether or not they can decipher or distinguish between the wave pattern and the particle pattern. So say hello to